I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and here today with me is Arlen Hansen. He's a well-known mining industry figure with 25 years of experience in the Canadian capital markets and the founder of Kin Communications. Arlen has built a strong reputation for bringing the investment community successful emerging opportunities in the mining and energy sectors. You may recognize him as the host of the Kinvestor Report right here on YouTube, where he speaks with some of the most respected voices in the industry. Today, we're going to get his take on the resource sector and hear about his upcoming conference. Arlen, thank you so much for being here. Great to have you.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, we've got an interesting conversation coming up today, and I thought we could start with your broader thoughts on the industry. When you zoom out, how do you currently view the global mining and energy cycle from an investor standpoint?
Oh, I think we're just at a very early stages of a major reset. We've clearly had like a decade or more of underinvestment, and now supply is like very structurally tight, no matter which commodity you're looking at. Obviously, we have some things happening in the Middle East that is showing some of those structured deficits and supply deficits. But capital is starting to come back. It's still pretty early, I believe. But I don't think we're just in a commodity cycle. I think we're in like a super cycle that we'll see continue for years. We're going to have blips like this. Clearly, we've kind of been sideways to down since early January, mid-January, when there was a ton of euphoria. But I think we're far, far, far from over. It feels very, very different this time.
Yeah, I know nobody likes to say this time is different, but it is starting to feel like that could actually be true. And, prices for gold and silver, they're historically high, but investors went through a period of time of pain when the stocks weren't catching up to the metals prices. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what changed, what happened there.
Yeah, well, if you've been in this industry for the last 15 years, you're no stranger to some of the pain that was involved in being a mining investor or a commodity investor. Every check you cut, you'd lose money on. Almost every time you bought a stock, you'd lose money on, and that becomes super tiring, right? And then you have these like little mini bull runs or like very short term kind of let's get enthusiastic about the market, and people would open their wallet books and get cut in half again. And I think just like when this happens time and time again, investors just get extremely tired. They lose a lot of money, and they stop believing in the cycle that we're in, or stop believing that these things have value. And then we start to see gold start kind of leading the charge, going from like 1,100 to 1,700 bucks, and nobody was caring. Like nobody cared. Nobody started caring until, I want to say, really 6 to 8 months ago is kind of when the generalist kind of population started poking their heads up and started buying these stories again. So the opposite of what happened in the last 13 years is starting to happen. Now when people are cutting checks and buying stocks, they're making money. So this capital can keep rotating and rotating and rotating. And like some of the savvy guys out there, if a stock has a big run, they'll sell some of their position. But when the stock comes back down to being oversold, they can buy more. So it's just adding more capital to the markets. I still don't think the generalists are here. I still think we have a long ways to go. I don't think we've seen any major euphoria on the big names. I still think some of the major companies and the major producers are cheap based on where gold is at. So yeah, it does feel like we're starting to get a little bit of love. And, as human beings, we remember what happened yesterday. We remember the cuts, we remember the pains. And we're obviously very cautious as human beings to not put ourselves in that trap when things start looking good again. And that's why I think it took so long for the market to start catching up a little bit. I still don't think we're catching up though. I still think we got a long ways to go here.
I just want to go back to your point about the generalists. This is one of my favorite questions to ask people in this market. What do you think is the trigger that brings more of those generalist investors back into the mining sector?
Charts. When charts break out, when things start making money, generalists start paying attention. Eventually the generalist funds start getting mandated, right, to start buying some of these names. And we have such a small market that when this generalist capital starts coming into our market, the leverage on it can be insane. You talk to Rick Rule, he says if I think something like 1% of there's like 1% of global gold holdings. If it went to 3%, where would gold go? And where would these stocks go? It would be absolutely insane. But we haven't seen that yet. We truly haven't seen that. And I know like a lot of investors who are very close to the Canadian markets might look at the last year and happy like, oh, wow, we've done so well. We've run so hard. But I think that's just like, it's just the beginning of a multi-year super cycle. If we were in a bear market for that long, I think that we've got underinvestment, not enough new discoveries, not enough new projects in production or in development. I think it was the Freeport CEO that said copper could go to $12. It would take him 3 more years to still increase his copper production. This is serious supply constraints across the globe now, and put on these resource wars that are happening across the world and everyone trying to onshore their own production. I think we could be in for some really interesting times here.
I think interesting times is definitely the way to describe it. So we'll keep watching those charts and see when the generalists may come in. As you've been saying, there's really strong fundamentals, not just for gold and silver, but for many commodities across the resource space. But there still seems to be a bit of a disconnect in terms of where capital is flowing. So can you go into what's causing that, what you see happening?
Well, capital is clearly running out of the market right now based on things in the Middle East, the conflict in the Middle East. What's kind of interesting is when I was talking to a lot of these, the guests that were on my show over the last couple of months, is everyone was going, I can't think of something that's going to pause this bull market. Right. And I've always learned that when we're at that stage in a market, it's always something that you don't think of that causes the pause or collapses the market. I don't think the conflict in the Middle East collapses, but it's certainly going to give us a pause in this market. And with the increasing in energy prices, which are going to be very significant for the producers out there, it's going to start cutting into some of their margins. So we see some of the big boys kind of going sideways to down. It's probably because people are looking out in the future going, hey, we're going to see heavy inflation here. So that's going to kind of reach the bottom line of some of these producers. And they had a good 6 months there where gold prices were ripping, but energy prices weren't following. So they weren't kind of succumb to the inflation pressures.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. It is often those black swan events. And of course, by their nature, you can't predict what will happen there.
No one could think of this event that would kind of cause a pause or stop this bull market. And certainly no one out there said, hey, there's going to be conflict in the Middle East to show up. So I think this has kind of surprised everybody. And I truly do think it is really just a structural pause. So you'd think at this time that maybe the critical metal stories would be ripping or gold would be ripping, but they're not. Like the gold's names aren't ripping. And I think it's just because of the uncertainty that this global conflict is causing right now. So yeah, this is certainly a little bit of a black swan event that I don't think people were anticipating. We don't know how long it's going to last for, but I think when it is over, we'll start seeing the bull market rip, roar, and continue.
Yeah, I think also in the conversations I've been having, people are speaking about this as a pause in the middle of a long-term bull market versus this is the end.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And you speak to a lot more smarter people than I do, Charlotte.
I don't think that's true. I think we speak to many of the same people. So if people like what they see here, yeah, they would like you as well.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, and I want to talk a little bit more about the company side, because I think this is probably where you have an edge. I know in your interviews, you talk a lot about understanding the DNA of a company. So let's get into that and what you mean by that.
Well, if you think about what the DNA in our body is everything that makes up our body, right? So the DNA of a company is everything that makes up a company. Who's the management team? What's the share structure like? How does management treat their contractors, their local community, their stakeholders? How does management treat their shareholders? How does management treat the person that answers the phone every day? Right? Who are these people that are running these companies? When people treat people with kindness in that way, they're going to respect our capital and the way that they respect like shareholders. So I think it's really important to understand and get to know the management of these companies. And to do that, you can't just go online and read someone's article or read an analyst report or pick up a recommendation from a newsletter writer, because then I don't feel like you go into these investments with conviction. When you get to know these people and the DNA and break apart these companies inside and out, you can actually invest with conviction, in my experience. And that allows you to ride out some of these times of uncertainty with conviction. And that is what I believe kind of leads to multiple returns on your capital, is being able to ride out these short-term times of uncertainty, because you have so much faith in the management team, so much faith in the project, and so much faith in the underlying commodity or whatever they're selling, that it's okay when things get cheaper. You want to buy more. That's the position you want to be in as an investor. And I don't think enough investors spend enough time getting to know the DNA of a company. And you can do that by starting to go to these online conferences like the ones that we have, like the PDAC, the MIF, the Vancouver Investment Conference. Like, spend time, take time out of your life. If you work so hard for your capital to keep your capital, why aren't you working this hard to keep and grow it by getting to know where you're putting your money with, and not just randomly throwing it at names just because we're in a bull market? So yeah, the DNA to me is very important, because it makes up all of the company, not just one aspect, not one just great story or one just great drill hole. It's all encompassing about the company. And I think you have, as an investor, you have the opportunity to get to know these management teams and do this homework with all this information that's online. It's all available for you. The only thing stopping you is your own will, your own discipline, right? Like Rick Rule says it again, there's no excuse not to be a billionaire in this market. You can walk to a coffee shop and see Ross Beatty, and who's such a nice guy, and just go say hi to him at the coffee shop. And he's a wealth of knowledge.
Well, and I think this gives a good segue into your event that's coming up on March 26th. So I wonder if you can share the details. It's going to be online, so it should be accessible for everybody. What would you want investors to know about it?
Oh, this is just, we've curated 18 companies across all sectors, the energy sector, precious metals, critical metals, battery metals, you name it, where we feel that management teams are high quality, that they got high quality assets, and they've got something to build shareholder value on. And we like to have honest conversations. We like to open up the door to allow investors to ask questions straight to management, and also put the investors in touch with management if they want to as well directly afterwards, so they can get to know the DNA of the companies. So yeah, I'm really proud of the lineup that we have. We've got everything from helium companies, natural gas in Europe, which is, because of the conflict, has obviously gone absolutely ballistic. We got gold companies, we got silver companies, uranium companies. So, and I'm really proud of the list of companies that we brought. Copper discoveries, you name it. So I think it's going to be a great day. You can log in, spend all day kind of chiming in, chiming out based on your schedule. I know it's during spring break, but maybe it's raining and you'll have something to do here and listen to these companies.
So you've got a nice mix of companies that people will be able to listen to. I also want to highlight there's a silver panel as well, which I think will be of great interest to our audience. Some favorite speakers there. I believe you've got David Morgan, Peter Kraut, Chen Lin on this silver panel.
Yeah.
Why did you want to hone in on silver right now?
Well, I think volatility creates opportunity. Period. And I think the day when I was talking to my staff, and this is just me being honest and vulnerable here, silver hit $100. So we were like, let's make a silver panel. So that's the honesty of it all. But I think silver is a really interesting commodity because it kind of ties in like the precious metals, but also the industrial demand that I think has really opened up a lot of new uses for silver that never used to be there. I think silver is the ugly stepchild of gold, but I don't think it should be ignored. And some of the guys like Chen and Peter and some people that I really respect are calling for $200-300 silver, which I don't think is out of the question as well. So yeah, we got some volatility. I think that silver is a great place to be, as well as precious metals. Along with the other precious metals. And so I think this is going to be a great conversation, but we've got companies presenting from all walks of life here, not just silver.
Yes. So the multitude of companies, the silver panel coming up on March 26th. Anything final that you would want investors to know about the event? We'll have the details in the video description as well. Yeah,
if you're attending the event, ask questions. I'll be moderating it. I want people to be involved. I want people to ask questions to the management teams. If we don't get to your questions, I want you to email in so we can get the questions answered for you. We're here to provide a platform for investors to learn and understand about some opportunities that are in this market on something that I believe is quite early on in the super cycle.
I really like the interactive element. I think not always people get the opportunity to actually connect with these people. So I think it'll be a great event. I will plan to tune in. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about it.
Ask the hard questions, Charlotte. I expect to see you in there.
Okay. You'll see me in the chat there. Anything final you would add for investors in general? Like you said, it's a really interesting time right now in the resource space.
Talking to Tavi Costa recently just made me feel that I don't think we can own enough of these names right now. I can't give advice on what names to own. I can't give it on certain things like that, but I just, after going through 13 years of hell, of a bear market, it has to turn the other way. Life is just full of cycles, right? And it's swung one way this side, it's going to go to the other. It's going to swing the other way, whether it's for 5 years, 10 years, I don't know, but we're swinging back the other way. Capital's starting to flow again. And I just don't, I think it's a market that investors just can't avoid right now. So they should learn about it if they don't.
I think perfect words to end on. And I'm really seeing that cyclical rotation theme come through in all of my conversations. So thank you so much for coming on today to talk about the resource sector, things you're hearing, and of course about the conference. Again, we'll have the details in the video description. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Charlotte.
Of course. Take care. Once again, you as well. Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and this is Arlen Hansen with Kin Communications and the Kinvestor Report.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a comment below.